welcome to Weekly Reddit. In today's episode of /PettyRevenge, take the car I paid for? Good luck finding the dead fish in it. Karen gets mad at the way I bag her clothes. The smack heard round the world. Getting scalpers what they deserve. Take the car I paid for? Good luck finding the dead fish in it. When I was 15 I began working, and by the time I was 17 I had enough money to buy my first car. Me being young, when my egg donor and stepdad said they were titling it in their name, for insurance and registration purposes, I didn't question it. 6 months later, they're divorcing. When the divorce is finalized, my egg donor informs me that my car, that I paid for, was going to my ex-stepdad in the divorce, since it showed a joint property between them. I was furious. The car looked nice on the exterior, but burned through a quart of oil every 2 days, and drove like crap, but it was still my car. The week before my ex-stepdad was due to pick it up, I quit putting oil in it. I drove around town extra that week. I was that smoke cloud in town of burning oil. To top off my revenge, my friend had a goldfish die. It was a pretty big fish, 3-4 inches long. I asked for it. The morning of the car being taken, July mind you, I cut the yellow foam beneath the passenger seat. The foam was sticky, abrasive, and resealed easily due to the stickiness. I cut the foam, and stuffed the dead fish into the padding, and pushed it as far over as I could. Then the foam stuck back together nicely. He showed up with his girlfriend was the mistress, thus causing the divorce, and he made a big show of giving her my car as a gift to her. I just smiled. I wish I knew how well the car went over, hours later, in the hot July weather, but I can imagine. Edit, egg donor is my bio mother, but she doesn't deserve any recognition in my life other than contributing genetic material. My bio dad is a wonderful, amazing person who was dragged through the coals for child support. He paid $150 a week in 1987, plus insurance. 50% of all insurance co-pays, had to do an additional $150 each child for school clothes, pay for school lunches, fees, and book rental. He worked 8-12 hours a day as a plumber, and part-time in a factory. He had nothing, and couldn't go into a futile court case with my egg donor, since back then the state didn't give custody to dads. I never told him about my life at her house, since I didn't want him to worry. Thanks for the awards. Karen gets mad at the way I bag her clothes. Hi all. First time posting a story. Forgive me for any formatting errors. Also dyslexic, so don't expect too much with grammar. Also sorry for the length, I tend to be long-winded I guess. I used to work at a discount department store, the name rhymes with boss. If you're unfamiliar, we buy the clothes from the big stores that don't sell and we sell it for a fraction of the price. We actually had some decent stuff that was priced close to thrift store. The thing is they make their money by understaffing and hoping to sell high volume. As we were understaffed, we didn't do the fancy folding and boxing that you might see at a Macy's, just a normal plastic bag like a grocery store. This story begins during the holidays when all retail is a nightmare. I was cashier and trying as hard as I could to get people through the long line, having worked 8 hours with no breaks. Remember understaffed, when this woman takes a giant cartload of clothes, think 3 pile of clothes, and throws it on the counter. I start trying to untangle this giant mess she made and scanning her items in. When I ask if they found everything all right, she cuts me off and says, "Can we hurry this up? I've got important things to take care of and I don't have all day to be here." Now it was 10:30 p.m., 22:30 for you across the pond, on a Tuesday, so I can't imagine what big time events she was planning at being at. Then she looks down and practically scream, "What the f you oaf? You're going to ruin everything. Take everything out of the bag and feed them nice." Now a couple things here. I'm a big dude, At the time I was 19 and only working there cause I lost my college football scholarship for D-line due to injury. Think 6 feet 4 inches 330 pounds and could run the 40 in 5.0, so not a flabby 330. Also, when I put clothes in the bag I was a bit nicer than my co-workers. I tended to do the half-loose fold and set them in the bag. Nothing fancy, but trying to not seem aggressive. Again, big dude, so it's easy for people to assume aggressive. I was completely thrown off when she yelled. At this point I'd dealt with annoying people but not a full Karen. I've generally always been able to keep composure, so I took a breath and calmly told her, "I'm sorry mom, but we don't do folding here. That tends to be more of a Macy's thing. I'm trying to be respectful of your purchase though, I promise." Still unhappy, she then utters the song of her people, "I want to talk to your manager, I don't like your attitude." Luckily I had my favorite shift on duty that night who I had to call over, which sucked with this giant line of people backing up. She came over and told the lady the same thing, that we don't fold clothes and we try to be careful. Karen then wants my job for ruining her clothes and a discount for having to deal with this S. My manager just tells her she does not see anything wrong, but she'll go over to CCTV later, her way of getting rid of them. I then give her the total and she pays, complaining the whole time. She then takes the bags and dumps them back on the counter, looks right at me and starts folding her clothes neatly one by one. At this point I was done. I was so tired and annoyed, but there was nothing I could do. She just stood there and folded each thing. Remember, she had a 3-pile worth of clothes. After 10 minutes of my manager and I trying to get her to leave and her not letting up touch her clothes without her slapping our hands away and yelling at other customers who tried working around her, she was done and left. Here comes the petty revenge, emphasis on the petty. About a week later she comes in again with another, slightly smaller, pile of clothes. She plops her clothes down and says, "I hope you learned to fold clothes." This automatically puts me on edge. I look at her, take her stuff, scan it all through and shove it all in one bag as one giant mass, set it on the counter. This time she grabs it, calls me a few choice words and leaves. I then send a message to all my co-workers about her and that they should do the same. A few weeks later and I see her go through another line and my co-worker shoves all her stuff in a bag. This kept up every time she came in, and every time I'd see her get huffy and walk off. I know it's not some big amazing payoff, but to know that every time she came in she would leave annoyed with her bagging. She still yelled at us all for anything and everything, but we always had that nice little "if you" as she left. Again, sorry about the length, but it's nice having a place to put this story. The smack heard round the world. I'd like to preface this by saying that I, 25F, was, back in the day, what was considered to be a gifted child. I apparently did well enough on some standardized IQ test that my school's administration saw fit to stick me and some of the other gifties in a series of specialized advanced classes. These were meant to test the limits of our creativity and forge geniuses out of us so that our apparent potential wasn't wasted to the world. Or something. I say this not to humble brag about my elementary age achievements. I, like many gifties, am now a horribly depressed adult with a complex or 7, but instead to serve as a preface to the sort of devious, conniving child I was. With the brain power to fuel my fucketry and bamboozle my enemies, I was a virtually unstoppable force of chaos. A fountain of shenanigans. More simply put, I was a little shit. But I was a smart little shit. When I was around 8 or 9, I did something to piss off my dad. I don't recall what, but it was bad enough to warrant a dose of old-fashioned corporal punishment, which wasn't as frowned upon in the mid-2000s as it often is today. Don't hit your kids, folks. That being said, my father had a system. He would send me to my room for about 10 minutes pre-punishment, something that gave me time to consider and reflect upon my crimes, and him time to calm down, as he did not believe in inflicting punishment while angry. Spankings were doled out thereafter, responsibility for actions was taken, talks were had and business was gone about as usual. Most of the time. But remember, I was both clever and devious at that age. It's a dangerous combination. On this particular day, I did not especially feel like owning up to my atrocities, and the brain gears were turning to the tune of spite. If he was going to spank me, I intended to make good of the age-old corporal punishment promise: this is going to hurt me more than it hurts you. The revenge. I had 10 minutes post-banishment to devise a plan. First, to soften the impact of what was to come, I donned several additional pairs of underwear beneath my jeans. Not enough to look bulky or be suspicious, but enough to cushion the inevitable blows. Second, I looked around for something hard. Something solid and sturdy, but small enough to fit down the back of my pants without its presence being obvious. I settled on a small hardback book, just the right size to fit where I needed it without giving me the telltale ass of SpongeBob SquarePants. In the bathroom attached to my room, I checked myself at all angles to be certain that my ruse was not discoverable at first glance and was quite pleased with the results. Then I waited. Good old Dad came into the room, sat down on the bed. He gave me the look, and I assumed the position after fronting a few protests to mask my anticipation. Smack! The sound of a grown man's hand striking a hardback book cover isn't usually satisfying, but it's the most beautiful sound in existence when the alternative is the sound of that same hand colliding with your ass. I don't think it would have actually hurt him if he had been expecting it, but he didn't, and it did. I, on the other hand, felt nothing. Words were said, colorful ones, as dear old Dad aggressively shook out his stinging palm and regarded me as though I'd just personally ruined his day. I hoped I had. I was a spiteful child, and proud enough of my bastardism that I graced him with the most blatant grin of the shit-eating variety that someone at the age of 9ish could muster. Did the following punishment increase as a result of my childhood assholery? You bet your sweet, book-shielded asses it did. Was it worth the moment of pride, sass and chaotic glee that my childish self derived from knowing I'd struck back? Abso-fucking-lutely. Edit: this post is literally just a funny story from my childhood and isn't intended to spark or entertain debate on the effectiveness or morality of corporal punishment. If you can't read a story without going full keyboard warrior, just move on. Don't start shit in the comments. Edit 2. Thank you for silver and all the fun little awards. And shout out to my fellow gifties. United in suffering, we are getting scalpers what they deserve. Currently in my country, they are selling PS5 for as high as $1,600, which is equal to at least 3 months of the average wage here. So as the title says, I've looked for PS5 listing as sorted by the highest price and reposted some of them on another listings site at a much lower price, somewhere around $300, but still credible with the right description. I totally understand being a middleman and adding a reasonable percent on the prices for your profit, as that is totally fine, but I think you have to be extraordinarily unscrupulous to mark up the price more than 300% and profit of the fact it's a desired gift, especially for kids, and some parents take loans just to make a kid's Christmas. Some of them reduced their prices to acceptable amounts, while others have taken down their listings entirely because of the bombardment of texts and calls. I even called some of them personally to check the waters, and after I said I'm calling for the PS5, they immediately told me there is some kind of error in the site showing the prices incorrectly, apparently because many called for a much lower price. I wonder why. Hope they learned a lesson not to hoard items, making them unavailable to the rest and mark up the price so high. Edit: thank you so much for the awards, guys. This is my first real post, so it's honestly so nice to see your opinions in the comments and sharing your views with each other. Edit 2. This was against orders of just some PS5 But remember the start of the pandemic where many hoarded vital items and were selling them at insane prices. Scalpers affect communities and they must be strongly discouraged.
Don't forget to subscribe so you can stay up with the best content from Reddit.